Lila Hart was not your average girl next door. In fact, she was the girl everyone warned their younger siblings about, the one with the bright neon hair, a devil-may-care attitude, and a smile that promised both trouble and a wicked good time. By day, she was a barista, slinging lattes with a grin and occasionally flirting with the cute guy who ordered the triple-shot espresso. By night, she was a digital siren on OnlyFans, carving out a kingdom of followers with her sharp wit, unapologetic confidence, and a penchant for the risque. Her journey into the world of adult content was accidental at first. A dare from a best friend on a lonely Friday night turned into a viral video that netted more likes than her entire Instagram feed combined. Encouraged, she launched her account with a wink and a prayer. What started as an experiment quickly morphed into a full-time gig fueled by a curious blend of financial necessity and a hunger for attention. Lila was no stranger to breaking rules. She counted her escapades not in days or weeks, but in numbers, men, encounters, stories. She wasn't interested in love, not really. She was interested in the thrill, the chase, the sheer absurdity of it all. After all, sleeping with 583 men was no small feat. It was a lifestyle. Her list was a bizarre ledger of escapades, each entry more ridiculous than the last. There was number 14, who showed up in a Batman costume and insisted on calling her Robin throughout the night. Number 37 tried to convince her he was a time traveler from the future. Number 210 brought a parrot as his wingman, who promptly interrupted their business with loud squawks of, "Polly wants a cracker." Lila documented it all with a twisted sense of humor and an Excel spreadsheet that would make any data analyst proud. Columns included name, date, performance rating, and comments. Some entries read like a dark comedy script. #98, too obsessed with his abs. Kept flexing mid-kiss. 3 out of 10. Or, #276, claimed to be emotionally unavailable, but cried halfway through. 4 out of 10. She reveled in the chaos, using humor as armor against the creeping loneliness that threatened to overwhelm her. But beneath the bravado was a growing sense of emptiness. The thrill faded quickly, replaced by a hollow ache that no number of encounters could fill. The OnlyFans fame brought her money and fleeting adoration, but it also exposed her to the harshest critics. Trolls called her slutty and damaged, while some fans romanticized her as a liberated queen of sexuality. None of it mattered. Lila just wanted to keep moving forward, keep counting, keep living on the edge. Yet, somewhere deep inside, a quiet voice whispered that maybe, just maybe, there was more to life than this mad, messy ledger. And so the stage was set, a woman on the edge of reckoning, a digital siren drowning in her own ocean of conquests, and the possibility of something new lurking just beyond the neon glow of her laptop screen. Lila's world was a carousel spinning out of control, and she was the ringmaster, caffeinated, glitter-streaked, and barely holding on. Every new man was a ticket to a ride that never quite delivered the promised fun, but hey, the line was long and the lights were bright, so why not? She found herself at the crossroads of absurdity and exhaustion. On paper, or rather her infamous spreadsheet, she was crushing it. 583 men. A number so high it felt like a cruel joke she dared to play on herself. But numbers had become her only currency, the only way to measure a life that otherwise felt unquantifiable. Her encounters were like walking into a carnival funhouse, distorted, strange, occasionally hilarious, often terrifying. There was number 102, who insisted on narrating the entire experience like a documentary, complete with dramatic pauses and awkward attempts at humor. And here we have the elusive Lila, in her natural habitat, performing the ancient mating ritual. He was a strange one, but oddly charming. Then there was number 156, who brought a full picnic basket because romance was all about ambience. The basket, unfortunately, contained nothing but cold beans and 3-day-old sandwiches, which didn't exactly set the mood. Lila kept moving, a blur of late-night texts, unwashed sheets, and the hum of her laptop notifying her of new OnlyFans subscribers. The money was good. Better than good. It was the kind of good that paid her rent and bought her the occasional bottle of something strong enough to blur the edges of reality. But with the thrill came the abyss, a dark pit that yawned wider every time she closed her laptop and faced her reflection. She didn't recognize the girl staring back. Her eyes were rimmed with exhaustion, her smile more practiced than real. The woman who once danced through life like it was a party had become a ghost haunting her own funhouse. She tried to drown the feeling with humor. Every man got a nickname, a rating, a joke scribbled next to their name in her ledger. It was how she survived. Turning trauma into comedy. Turning pain into punchlines. But late at night, when the city was silent and the only sound was the buzzing of the street lamp outside her window, the loneliness crept in like a thief. It was then she whispered into the dark, "Is this all there is?" One night, after number 378, a man who wore socks with sandals and smelled like regret, she found herself scrolling through her phone, landing on a folder she'd created called Elijah. It was empty except for photos she'd stolen from a model's Instagram, quotes from poems she barely understood, and a desperate, messy poem she'd written when the whiskey had won. He smells like thunder and cocoa butter. His smile breaks me in half. I want him to ruin me gently. It was pathetic, cringeworthy. Yet it was the only thing that felt like hope. She didn't know who Elijah was, or if he even existed. But in her mind, he was the antithesis of the chaos. Steady, kind, strong. He was the man she wanted when she stopped wanting anyone else. For now, though, Elijah was just a dream tucked into a folder on her phone. A story she told herself when the nights got too long and the men too many. And so she kept spinning, kept chasing, kept laughing, because what else was there? By man number 417, Lila was running out of synonyms for regret in her journal. She'd started assigning nicknames instead of names. Number 421, breath smelled like war crimes. Nice to his dog. 4 out of 10. Number 433, quacked during sex. No, seriously. 2 out of 10. Her spreadsheet had become a coping mechanism. Her therapist called it depersonalization. Lila called it efficiency. The spreadsheet even had a pivot table. Every Friday night she'd light a candle, pour herself a whiskey neat, and update her Excel doc like a retired actuary with a dark secret. One evening, after number 440, a man who insisted she wear a Dracula cape, she opened her phone and scrolled to Elijah's folder. He wasn't real, of course. Not yet. But she made a folder. For manifestation. Inside were photos of models, quotes from books, and a poem she'd drunkenly scrawled. He smells like thunder and cocoa butter. His smile breaks me in half. I want him to ruin me gently. It was deeply cringe. She knew it. She didn't care. Every man she met now failed the Elijah test. Lila had long since stopped being surprised. After 583 entries, nothing fazed her. Or so she thought. Then came number 584. He arrived at her apartment like he'd fallen out of a Wes Anderson film. Corduroy jacket, brogues with bright red laces, and a calm that unnerved her. He introduced himself as Simon, which sounded too gentle for someone whose DMs had included the phrase, "Teach me the language of your moans." Simon didn't make a move immediately. Instead, he set down a canvas tote bag and pulled out an origami kit. "It's part of my foreplay ritual," he said. "I make a crane for peace, a frog for fertility, and a condom wrapper swan. Keeps the energy balanced." Lila blinked. "You make condom wrappers into swans?" He nodded. "Recycling is sexy." Against her better judgment, she let him fold. And fold he did. By the time they were halfway naked, he had created a miniature zoo on her nightstand. The actual sex was less performance and more awkward duet. He kept stopping to check his chakra alignment and whispering things like, "Consent is the rhythm of the soul." When he left, she rated him a solid 6 out of 10. Extra point for creativity. Another name in the ledger. But Simon did something else. He unsettled her. There was a weird sort of purity in his madness. He'd made her laugh, not with her usual sharp edge, but genuinely. She sat on the bed afterward, staring at the paper swan and wondering when was the last time she'd let herself feel amused instead of armored. That night, she opened the Elijah folder again. Wrote a new line. Maybe he folds my pain into paper birds. Maybe he holds my chaos without flinching. By now, Lila's ledger was less a log and more a novel. Friends stopped asking her for updates. Even her fans were shifting, from wild thirst to voyeuristic curiosity. One sent her a message saying, "You're not just hot. You're a myth in motion." But Lila wasn't a myth. She was flesh and flaws and late-night cravings. She wanted Elijah to be real, to not just be an idea stitched together from scraps of longing. She wanted someone who didn't rate her based on fantasy or fame, but someone who looked at her mess and said, "This. I want this." Maybe he was African American. She liked that thought. So, handsome. Deep voice. Not because of a fetish, but because her mind tied beauty to strength, and she needed someone strong enough to pull her from this spinning carousel. She shut her laptop and whispered, "Elijah, if you're real, find me." And somewhere in the dark, the ledger quietly ticked forward. Lila thought she'd seen it all. That was until number 585 turned her own reflection into his co-star. His name was Jared, and he arrived with a suitcase full of handheld mirrors. Not one or two, but 15, all sizes, all angles. "You ever seen yourself from above while kissing someone's spine?" he asked. Lila blinked. "I can't say I have. Tonight's your lucky night." Number 586 was a magician. Not metaphorically, a real one, complete with a top hat, silk gloves, and a disturbing affinity for coin tricks that overstayed their welcome. Lila met him at a dive bar on karaoke night, where he pulled a live rabbit from behind her back while she was ordering tequila. Intrigued, she agreed to dinner. Or more accurately, a performance, followed by the world's most awkward attempt at seduction using sleight of hand. He tried to pull her bra off with a magic wand. It got stuck in her hair. Afterward, when he vanished into the night, literally, he ran out after setting off a smoke bomb in her apartment, Lila sat in the haze and thought about the irony. A man who disappeared as dramatically as she often wished she could. Her ledger read, number 586, card tricks during foreplay. Talked about Houdini while undressing. 2 out of 10. No encore. That night, she couldn't sleep. The sheets smelled like cheap cologne and burnt polyester. She opened her phone. The Elijah folder had grown, a slow digital bloom. More quotes. A stock photo of a man in a linen shirt looking pensive on a cliffside. She didn't know why she was curating this fantasy so carefully, but it was the only part of her life that felt tender, untouched. She added a new note. "He doesn't need to escape me. He doesn't treat my body like a puzzle to solve." The days blurred together. She avoided mirror reflections, skipped meals, started drinking her coffee black again. There was a darkness rising like floodwater, slow but insistent. Her fans noticed. They commented on her eyes, her tone, the way her laughter didn't land like it used to. She started canceling collabs. Started turning down shoots. Even her OnlyFans inbox, once flooded, was quieter. Like the world knew she was withdrawing. Then came a message. Simple. From a username she didn't recognize, Elijah Rises. "You look tired. Want to talk instead of strip?" She stared at the message for 10 minutes. Typed 3 different replies. Deleted them all. Then typed, "Only if you're real." He replied instantly, "Only if you are." For the first time in months, she smiled. Lila didn't trust easily. Especially not behind a screen. But something about Elijah Rises was different. He didn't rush. Didn't flirt aggressively or compliment her looks like she was a product on display. He asked about her day. About her favorite childhood book. About her dream vacation if the internet disappeared forever. His messages read like poetry that hadn't been workshopped, raw, occasionally clumsy, but sincere. He told her he was African American, worked in community outreach, and loved jazz more than he loved sleep. She imagined him tall, with broad shoulders, deep eyes, and a voice like worn leather and midnight thunderstorms. They didn't sext. They didn't even FaceTime at first. Just typed. Back and forth. Pages of words that dripped with curiosity, vulnerability, humor. When he finally sent a photo, he was even more beautiful than her imagination allowed. Lila stared at the image for hours, tracing the lines of his jaw with her eyes, afraid to believe this wasn't just another trick. She sent him a photo too. No makeup. Hair messy. A tired, real smile. He replied, "You look like a woman who's survived 1,000 storms and still built sandcastles." Their conversations bled into her waking hours. She stopped updating her ledger. Stopped counting. The spreadsheet that once ruled her life was now just an artifact, like an old diary she didn't need anymore. He told her about his mother, about growing up with sisters, about losing a friend to violence and turning that grief into purpose. Lila listened, really listened, and found pieces of herself in his pain. He asked if she wanted to meet. Panic clawed up her throat. But she typed yes. She didn't tell him about the ledger. Not yet. She didn't know how. How do you explain to someone you love that you once slept with nearly 600 people because you were too afraid to stop? Maybe he'd understand. Maybe he'd walk away. She cleaned her apartment. Bought fresh sheets. Deleted half her content. Closed the folder titled Elijah because she no longer needed a fantasy. She had something better. A maybe. A chance. A beginning not born from chaos. The day they were to meet, she stared at her reflection and whispered, "Please let him see me. Not the show. Not the mask. Just me." And then she waited. He was 15 minutes early. Elijah sat at the corner table of a quiet downtown cafe, nursing a black coffee and trying not to psych himself out. He wore a dark gray shirt, simple jeans, and the cologne his late father used to wear, not for drama, but for grounding. The place smelled like roasted beans and rain on pavement. It reminded him of college, of late-night study sessions, of moments when life still felt manageable. He'd seen hundreds of photos of Lila. Knew her face from every angle. But the pictures she'd sent privately, the ones without the glam, without the filters, those were different. She looked human. Beautiful, yes, but real. Tired. Brave. Fragile in the way old trees are fragile, withstanding storms but bearing scars. He didn't know what to expect. And he sure as hell didn't know if he could live up to the man she'd built in her imagination. Then she walked in. Lila wasn't wearing makeup. Her neon hair had faded to soft lavender, tied back into a loose bun. She wore a hoodie 2 sizes too big and jeans with a rip at the knee. And still, she radiated something magnetic. Not sex, not performance, presence. Like she knew this moment mattered. Their eyes met. She hesitated, then walked toward him. "Elijah," she said, voice barely above a whisper. "Lila," he replied, standing. They didn't hug. Didn't shake hands. Just sat, two people who had known each other deeply through screens but not skin. For a minute, they said nothing. The silence was oddly comforting. "You're taller than I thought," she said. "You're softer," he replied. "I mean that in a good way." She smiled. "I haven't done this in a long time." "What? Talk to someone without charging them?" She laughed. Not forced. Not performative. Just laughter, free and full. They ordered pastries. Talked about music. Avoided the elephant in the room. But eventually, it reared its head. "I need to tell you something," she said, staring into her untouched cappuccino. He nodded. "Okay. I've slept with a lot of men." He waited. 586, actually. I counted. Elijah took a slow sip of coffee. Then he said, "That's very specific." She winced. "I made a spreadsheet." His eyebrows lifted. "Like, with filters and charts?" "Yes." The pause. Then he chuckled. "Please tell me you used conditional formatting." She stared at him. "Color-coded orgasms?" he teased. Lila burst out laughing, loud and sudden. People turned to look. She didn't care. "I was so scared you'd leave," she said, wiping tears from her eyes. "I might," he said. "Eventually. If you turn out to be awful at Mario Kart or hate Coltrane. But not because of your past." She inhaled. Exhaled. "I'm trying to be different. But I don't need perfect. I need honest." They walked for hours after that. Through the city park. Down graffiti-covered alleys. He told her about the job he loved, the sister who drove him crazy, the poem he once wrote that made his mom cry. She told him about the night she started her OnlyFans. About the ledger. About the way the loneliness gnawed at her in silence. When they parted, it was with a kiss. Gentle. No fireworks. Just a promise of more. And later, at home, Lila deleted the spreadsheet. Chapter 8. The final entry. The apartment was quiet. No camera. No lighting ring. No fake moans or props. Just Lila, sitting cross-legged on the floor, sipping green tea, staring at a blank notebook. She hadn't opened the ledger in weeks. Hadn't needed to. Elijah hadn't tried to save her. He didn't need to. He simply stayed, showed up, listened, laughed with her, held her when the nights got hard and her hands shook from old ghosts. It was terrifying. Being loved without earning it through performance felt like cheating. She kept waiting for the catch. For him to flinch. But he didn't. Even when she had a panic attack in the middle of Target. Even when she couldn't stop crying because she saw a man wearing the same cologne as number 312. Elijah didn't treat her like a rescue project. He let her be. Some days she was radiant. Some days she was rubble. He kissed her either way. They built rituals. Sunday pancakes. Thursday jazz nights. He made her playlists. She wrote him bad poetry. They fought. They made up. They kept choosing each other. One night she asked him, "Why me?" He looked at her for a long time. Then he said, "Because you've already lived 10 lives. And you still want to live one more." She opened a new spreadsheet. But this one was different. It had 2 columns, days with Elijah and things I'm learning to love. Row 142 days, the way he kisses my forehead before coffee. Row 243 days, the sound of his laugh when I burn toast. Row 344 days, myself. The ledger of Lila Hart was no longer a list of strangers. It was a chronicle of becoming. She closed the notebook, and for the first time in years, didn't feel the need to count anymore. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe for more amazing videos and special editions. You can also check out more amazing stories from our timeline.